Hey everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to go through a league with mono white initiative in Vintage. Now, this deck has not only taken over Legacy, but is also making waves in Vintage. These initiative cards are absolutely no joke, even in the game's most eternal, most powerful format. So I'm going to take you through a super fast-paced and abbreviated deck tech, and then we're going to jump right into the games. We're going to watch the games that I played, and I'm going to kind of coach through the decisions and what I'm thinking and why I made any certain plays and things like that. So let's do it. This is the deck we're playing in the Vintage League. It's mono white initiative. So sideboard, or excuse me, the mana base is fast mana like Ancient Tombs, some utility white mana, along with basic planes. We're drawing cards and trying to interrupt them. The point of the deck is to be sort of a hate bears deck, while cheating out cards that mess up our opponent, like Thalia, Archon of Emeria, Anointed Peacekeeper, Spirit of Labyrinth, but especially cheating out cards way earlier than they should be, with cards like Seasoned Dungeoneer and White Plume Adventure to get the initiative thing rolling, to start venturing through the Undercity as fast as possible. We cheat these things out with all of the Moxs, right? Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, Black Lotus, etc., etc. So we're hate bearing our opponent and then trying to get through the Undercity as fast as possible. So jump into the first game here. We look at this opening hand, and this opening hand is kind of sweet. So just with the opening hand, we can turn one Thalia with Plains Mox Ruby and just go boom Thalia, we're done, and then turn two Ancient Tomb and go Seasoned Dungeoneer, and that's like really, really disgusting. So we keep this opening hand. Our opponent goes Mountain, Mana Crypt, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So it's probably some like mono red prison deck. But we draw probably the best draw in our entire deck, which is Mox Ruby. Or excuse me, Mox Pearl. Mox Pearl means that we can just go Ancient Tomb, Mox Pearl, Mox Ruby, have 4 mana, go Seasoned Dungeoneer. And it needed to be like exactly Mox Ruby. I guess Lotus Petal or Black Lotus were also fine. But, or excuse me, it needed to be exactly Mox Pearl. Why do I keep saying Ruby? Because Ruby's right there. But need to be exactly the white mana artifact, so that we could actually cast Seasoned Dungeoneer, because we needed to Ancient Tomb on top of it. So that was an absolutely disgusting draw, because it means we can just go turn one Seasoned Dungeoneer and just start getting this initiative on track immediately. Let's go boom, Seasoned Dungeoneer, everything's awesome. We go initiative, we grab our planes, and just pass the turn. Awesome. Lose the flip on Mana Crypt, which is actually a little relevant. Discarding 2 cards, we're looking for things. Oh no, this is the Painter deck, I think. It was like Painter with initiative. That'd be the only reason you play. I guess there are other reasons to play main deck Pyroblast. So he takes the initiative back, but so this play pattern is actually pretty important. So attack first before we play our initiative creature. Because remember, we can play another initiative creature this turn. We attack first, so we take initiative back, so we get to the next stage, and then we play our initiative creature afterward, so that we get 2 more pieces of initiative. So we get all the way to trap instead of just forge this turn, which is actually like really relevant when you play these initiative mirrors. In addition, there's no real benefit for the triggered ability from Seasoned Dungeoneer. When you attack target attacking, blah, 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 gains protection from creatures and it explores. Because if you have redundant Seasoned Dungeoneers and you attack with one of them and then you target both of them with the Seasoned Dungeoneers triggers, only one of them is going to go off, because off of the first trigger, it gains protection from creatures, which means even your own creature can't resolve its ability on it. So there's actually just no reason to play it before combat. So, also, there's a White Plume Adventure on top of our deck. We just left it there, which we're just totally okay with just initiating again, because that pseudo guarantees us getting to the end of the Undercity on our turn 3, which is absolutely disgusting. So, turn 2, our opponent's at 7. And now they're at 4, because Mana Crypt, they lost the flip twice, and then we get the concession. So, there we go. To jump into game 2, so we're on the draw now. This is another pretty disgusting hand, because we get to go turn 1 Plains Mana Crypt Archon. And Archon is just a solid card, especially against these initiative decks. You know, being able to take back initiative really easy with flying, and also like, you know, they play a lot of like fetch lands and like cards, ancient tomb effects and things like that. So we just hit the Archon. I also had Mana Crypt again, Soul Ring, Magus of the Moon. Oh man, and I would be so upset if I was my opponent, you know, in this situation. Also, we ripped Mox Ruby, so we have like the most disgusting first draw both games. Because again, now we can turn 1 Seasoned Engineer. And that's exactly what we do. I would be so tilted if I was my opponent. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because I needed exactly planes or one of the, I think, 3 artifacts. And I think there are only 3 planes in the deck. Yeah, and they just get a concession right there. So that was our very first match. So we're now 1-0 going into the second round in this league. We look at this opener. This opener is pretty solid because we can just go Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, White Plume Adventure, and get initiative on turn 1. So we keep hands like that. Totally okay with that. Mox Jet. I feel like every single opponent's had Mana Crypt on turn 1 at this point. Just super lame. We go Archon. So this is a problem for us because it means we can't Lotus Petal and White Plume Adventure, which is really rough. So we still turn 1 Ancient Tomb. So we still turn 1 Ancient Tomb because all of the cards or all the lands in our hand are going to enter tapped, and we still want to be able to White Plume Adventure next turn. So we have to turn 1 Ancient Tomb. If the tapped clause like wasn't there, we totally could have like get a thing off Ursa Saga or whatever, but like that's not the reality. So we still have to turn 1 Ancient Tomb and just have it do nothing, get the Lotus Petal out so we can, because of the 2 spell clause, and then wait for the next turn. They play their mana. Looks like they had a very mana heavy hand, just kept Archon. Pass the turn. So at this point I'm a little afraid of Solitude. But we still have to jam the White Plume Adventure, get a land that'll come in untapped eventually, get our Urza Saga trigger and pass the turn. So they do not play Solitude at the end of our turn, which is amazing for us. They play another mana card and just hit us. At this point, I'm like, they definitely just have a land in their hand, and now they have 2 lands. Now they have 1 land in their hand because they just played that. We get another trigger off of this. Hit him in the face. We play a land, and it means we get a homie off of Urza Saga, and we get the thing back. I decided to scry here. Mostly deciding to scry because I need gas in my hand. Like I need to like, my opponent is only like a card or 1 or 2 top decks away from like kind of stealing the game from me and taking over the game from me. So I needed to make sure that my draws were better. That was a little more important than turning my White Plume Adventure into a 5/5 and getting trapped the following turn. Also, getting Stash is like totally okay against Archon because we're unable to make our untapped land drops after we play these planes. That is totes fine. And our opponent just like conceded to the scry for some reason, which we'll take. So going into game 2, this opening hand is just bonkers, obviously. We even have the Black Lotus and Leap Swords of Plowshares up. Like, we get to turn 1 Seasons Engineer for the 3rd time in 4 games. And turn 1 Initiative for the 4th time in 4 games. We're running super hot. And also be able to Leap Swords of Plowshares up. So, obvious keep. Obvious keep is obvious. Yeah, they once upon a time reveal Strip Mine. We don't really care. We just need to keep in mind that it's going to die. And so now we just get to turn 1 Seasons Engineer and kill the Stormvoice Mystic, which is disgusting because you grab Cauldron Complete. And that's exactly what we do. We just go Mox Pearl, Mox Jet, Black Lotus, Swords of Plowshares, do our thing. Yeah, and they just concede to that. And the game's over. Turn 1 concession. Welcome to Vintage, right? So we are 2-0 going into round 3. So let's check out this match. So we keep our opener again. We get the turn 2 White Plume Adventure, and with the Chrome Mox, this means that we can, like, any white card draw means we can turn 1. So I think that was like a fine risk, or like any like white mana draw. Like, there are a ridiculous amount of draws that means we can turn 1 White Plume. So this hand was totally fine. There's definitely a really good argument to mulligan. So Black Lotus, obviously best draw possible. you know, we get to kill the Urza Saga and then still be able to White Plume, which super gross. You know, Wasteland Urza Saga. Super duper gross. And we just pass the turn. Our turn one draws have been very, very lucky this league. So they play another Urza Saga. We don't really care. We just go Forge. We're just going to kill him as fast as possible. We hit our mana. Feels like we're our opponent from the last round now, which is just, you know, our stuff doing nothing, but hopefully it's good enough. They play their Underground Sea. At this point, I'm like, maybe Doomsday. Or Tinker. And they make their guy, which, I mean, we don't really care about. But at this point, they, you know, they have a blocker. They're going to grab Manifold Key, and we're dead to the artifact that makes take extra turn. We're dead to Time Vault. And the game is over. So I conceded. And there wasn't a lot we were able to do there. We were able to turn one our initiative guy, and, you know, we just drew nothing else. And it is what it is. So game 2. We jump in. So I kept this hand because of the being on the play in Vintage and having Chalice of the Void is good against nearly every deck because it shuts off all of the Lotuses and Black Lotus and like Chrome Moxs and Manival and all these cards people are playing. So that's really disgusting. But as well, Null Rod is really, really good against the Manifold Key, Time Vault, like Tinker stuff that is going on. So there's two different ways we're shutting down this stuff. So this is a really obvious keep. And then also we have Urza Saga to eventually have, you know, these ways to do that. Honestly, it was probably a play mistake to go Plains first. Probably should have Urza Saga and Moxs Ruby, just so it'd be in 2 at this point. Oh, no. The reason I did Plains first was so that, like, I wouldn't waste a trigger off of, you know, having to cast the Null Rod. I did decide to go Chalice of the Void for 1, because I was looking at deck lists and, like, I was way more concerned about the 1 cost, like, draw spells and, like, the key itself and all of that stuff than the mana makers. That was probably a misplay. I'm not 100% sure, because at that point I could have, like, really easily gone just, like, turn 1 Urza Saga, Chalice for 0, Null Rod, you know, go. And then be able to start making Urza Saga homies right after. I think it's a little bit of a tough call. But sequencing, I think sequencing at the beginning of this turn was really weird and tough. But we get this Null Rod out, which gets Hull Breachered because Mana Crypt is just going to sit there now and not be able to activate, but it's a triggered ability to grab that stuff. Now I want to... I don't strip mine him because I want to activate Urza Saga so we can actually do stuff this turn, or this game. Also, the turn 1 Null Rod's a little awkward. I don't play the Mana Crypt because I don't want what is happening to my opponent to happen to me. But my opponent is just the god at coin flips. Very, very obviously. So he's just not going to take damage off of Mana Vault. However, having a bunch of big homies means my constructs are way bigger. And I believe this turn I cast the 2 artifacts in my hand just to make my guys bigger. And we just start jamming with 8/8s on turn 4. Which is a... Oh, and he finally lost a flip. Which is just kind of a weird way to go about it. But it's a concession. So good for us. Again, that turn 1 could have totally been played a little differently. But going into game 3, here we go. Game 3, our opening hand has a Black Lotus and an initiative homie in it, so we're there because that can get us our color. The cool part about this too, I also thought I think I played this on stream. I also thought like this opening hand is like, oh my god, if we draw any Moxs, we get to double spell on turn 1, which is gross. You know, double 3-mana creature on turn 1. But we don't. So we just Black Lotus into our initiative person. You know, get our initiative thing. Play the plains, pass the turn. But we have a second initiative card in our hand, which means we get to get all the way to trap if we want to next turn. I don't think I did that. We'll see what happens. So Narset just looks for something and then they pass. That's kind of good for us because it means like we get the initiative on our turn, are able to kill Narset, and are able to play a new initiative creature. Oh no, I just played okay. Peacekeeper actually makes sense, right? A Peacekeeper to kind of see what's going on. It also baited a Force of Will, so now they have 2 cards in their hand and one of them is fresh. They hit the Time Vault, which we have answers to all of these things, which is just really, really gross. We kind of get to play the control route. We also hit the Chalice of the Void. Like, we kind of just have everything, and they just have to, like, 2-for-1 themselves to be able to answer it. So we hit the Time Vault to make sure we don't die next turn. Chalice for 0, so they can't play any, like, many more of their things. And the game is all but over, and they concede. So we are now 3-0 in the league. So we go into round 4. We are at 3-0. So this opener oh my god, slow down. So the first 2 openers were no-goes. They just didn't have didn't have any of the turn 1s or anything. I think I keep this one. Yeah. So we just put back the cards that might not do anything and keep the cards that will almost definitely do something. So we get a Mold of 5. And this deck mulligans a lot because it really needs the turn 1 anything. We attempt to Lauren away a Moxs, which they're going to brainstorm and look for a counterspell for. It doesn't eat a counterspell, so they're able to kind of almost strip mine them, by hitting a Moxs with that. They literally strip mine us away our planes, so now we don't have access to white mana. So this is like definitely a big issue with like your turn 1 play not being an initiative creature. Like grabbing the planes off the initiative creature is so relevant, especially when they play the strip mine and wastelands, because this happens. I decided to play Urza Saga rather than wastelanding him, just so we get as close as possible to popping the Urza Saga and being able to grab a Moxs or a Black Lotus from our deck. So we continue here. Jam in, and we just don't have white mana, so we just have to jam and then pass the turn, unfortunately. And he gets a 3/3. I decide that like me finding white mana is more and giving my opponent a card, and give my chance to find the white mana. Because if I don't find the white mana for 2 more turns, the game's probably over with Oko. So I decided to draw with Lauren. We do hit the white mana in Crone Mox. We deal with the 3/3, which is also kind of like a wasteland, which is dope. But there's actually no point in playing the white mana this turn anyway, because dealing with the 3/3 I felt like was more important. And we're gonna get a Black Lotus here in a second with Urza Saga. I think I grabbed Black Lotus. I think I might have grabbed Mox Pearl. I can't remember. So we got Mox Pearl. It means we have white mana indefinitely, which is really nice. And we get a homie. That's gonna get bigger when we search a library. Another homie that's going to get bigger. So at this point, we're trying to swarm. We hit up our Black Lotus, and try to annoy a Peacekeeper, which gets killed, which is unfortunate. Really want initiative. Like, if we had initiative at any point here, like, it's insane. We kill the Oko, though. I don't think a lot of these decisions, like, actually matter. Yet I think a lot of these decisions are pretty obvious. There was an argument for Mox Pearl there, except we did draw Horizon Canopy, and we saw Horizon Canopy before we popped the Saga, so it didn't really matter. For some reason, the game froze there and just moved on. So let's see if we can turbo through this. I don't know why in the replays it won't go through a point. I'm really sorry. The game continues. I honestly totally forgot how I lost, but I ended up losing this game. I'm really annoyed that the replay doesn't go even farther. That's ridiculous. We draw cards? Nope. That's super ridiculous. What the heck? Essentially what happened was my opponent just cast Oath of Druids that next turn, was able to put a Niv Mizzet into play, and he started pinging out my board and wiping my board, and I just lost the game, like, out of nowhere. I apologize we weren't able to actually see that happen, though. It's super weird. We look at this opener. This opener is pretty good. The issue is it's awkward to have a lot of mana and white land. But a Chalice for 1 is actually pretty good against Oath of Druids because they're unable to look for cards in their deck, but it gets Force of Will. Next turn, we're able to cast our Seasoned Engineer, however. So that is totally fine, baiting the Force of Will on the non-initiative creature. So we get a Force of Will, something Force of Will on turn 1. Turn 2, Seasoned Engineer. That's totally like a fine turn 1 and 2. We play a Ganjo because like it doesn't actually matter against this deck, and it means we don't have to take damage. Unfortunately, they've Vampiric Tutor for Oath of Druids, and I believe they cast Oath of Druids here, which means they just go into the creature on their turn. Which, I think at this point I'm like, okay, maybe we can like race it because we get to trap this turn, hit him for a whole bunch, trap, and maybe it's good enough. We only really need to attack one more time. And this will get protection from creatures when it jams. So I'm like, okay, maybe we win. Like, let's do this thing. The Oath of Druids into Archon of Cruelty, which is super unfortunate. Which means we literally, like so the math works out that I can't hit him hard enough. Like, even if the top of my deck is not a land, I can only get him to 1. Which is just so rough. And like the issue is here as well is that like if I don't play a creature, he just attacks with Archon, and I sacrifice this creature, and I have nothing to work with. If I do play a creature, then he gets to Oath of Druids again. And I can't play Anointed Peacekeeper because I can't use Ancient Tomb because that'll put me to 9 and I'm dead in the air. So it's literally just a no-win situation. So I have to do this, so I'm not at 9, and hope they only have 1 target, I guess. Like, I don't know. Play to your outs, and then we just die. And the game is over. So we are 3-1 in the league so far. 3-1 in the league so far, going into our last round. I want to see that. We mulliganed away lands, turn 1 Spirit of the Labyrinth, and or turn 1 Chalice of the Void. It's just not good enough. Spirit of the Labyrinth, Chalice of the Void, especially on seven cards. So we mulliganed. This hand's kind of sweet. Anything with Black Lotus and anything we can cast off if it's nice, especially since we get to double spell here. So we get to Mox Pearl, land, Black Lotus, Spirit of the Labyrinth, and either Anointed Peacekeeper or Thalia. I think I went Anointed Peacekeeper. Oh god, I know we get to do everything, right? With a Mana Crypt draw. I think I remember. Yeah. Oh my god. So we just like get all of our mana. We just have to manage our white mana properly, and it's totally fine. We play Anointed Peacekeeper first to see what's up. They have nothing that actually matters, and we just put a ton of power on board on turn 1, and they just concede. Vintage gets pretty good when you draw restricted cards. So we look at this hand. Oh my god. That hand had no like mana ramp to speak of. We would have. I know you only saw a flash of it. I couldn't pause it in time. But it was like land, Seasoned Engineer, some 3 mana spells, and then like just lands. But it did include an Ancient Tomb, so we would have been able to turn 2 one of the 3 mana ones. But playing nothing on turn 1 just isn't good enough on a 7. This is also not good enough. So we ship to this. Put back cards that don't matter. This is fine because we get turn 1 Spirit of the Labyrinth, which is really solid against the draw spells, and then we are any mana source away from being able to either Archon or White Plume Adventure. That's totally okay. It's too bad we're not on the play with the Spirit of the Labyrinth and Gitaxian Probe. Drawing another White Plume is actually a totally fine draw because, again, we're just one mana source away from things actually mattering. They turn to Tinker into Bolas' Citadel, which is wild. We get to Thalia, which is kind of nice because, you know, Thalia's really good against Bolas Citadel because they can't just cast spells off top their deck and cast the Moxs off top their deck. However, it gets Force of Willed, and they're able to just, like, go off with Bolas' Citadel, which is just, like, totally disgusting when people do. I'm able to take another turn. We hit the Mana Crypt, which is, I guess, pretty good. We try to Archon. We try to Archon to stop the Bolas' Citadel. But they force of willed it, and I conceded from there. Like, there's literally no winning the game. You know, Shieldred was going to be able to do some damage. He was going to combo off with Bolas' Citadel, especially like off of Urza Saga and things. Like, we just move on to game 3. In game 3, we hit Black Lotus again. We're just running super hot in this league. We have turn 1 at a initiative creature and turn 1 Null Rod, if we want it. Turn 1 initiative. Super gross. I just played Wasteland and Chrome Moxs, so we can turn 1 Null Rod as well, and just totally shut down things my opponent's doing, and my opponent conceded to that. So a bunch of non-games, which I guess Vintage is known for, right? Totally non-games. But that's totally okay. I ended up 4-1-ing this league. Looking back on it and watching these replays alongside you guys, I think I only made like one really glaring mistake. I missequenced in, I think it was round 2. I missequenced something, or that involved the Chalice and the Null Rod and stuff. But other than that, I feel like I played reasonably well. This deck's super powerful. Like, I definitely recommend picking it up. And hopefully me walking through these games, narrating the games, explaining some decisions, explaining lines and stuff like that was helpful if you are looking to pick it up. If you like this video and want to see more videos like it, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.